Hello, Final Community. My name is Jamie. I am from Edinburgh in Scotland, and this is my debut video. I've been watching many of your videos for at least 5 or 6 years now, and have spent hours and hours and hours watching the great stuff that a lot of you have put out, and for a long time have wanted to kind of dive in and get involved with the community properly and start engaging a little more in what everyone was doing, but I never quite found that kind of hook to get myself in. And it was a video by James, whose channel is Rufus, I believe, who posted something last week about non-American jazz records, which for me just felt like probably the hook in, so that I could start making stuff and sharing with you guys and talking a little bit more about the music that we love. So yeah, without any further ado, let's get into it. I think for me, as someone living over in Europe, in Scotland here, there are probably records that are easier for me to access than for a lot of guys in the US, for example. They're just a little more plentiful. Stuff on Black Saint, Enya, ECM, those are really easy to get hold of, but even the kind of smaller independent labels, you can find them more easily over here, and if they're trickier to get, then you've obviously got the Discogs route, where the shipping over here is a lot cheaper. So yeah, I've picked out 10 jazz records plus a bonus at the end, and yeah, tried to globetrot a little bit, and let's see how we go. So first up, start in the UK, makes sense. This is the Michael Garrick Sextet featuring Norma Winston on vocals, and this is the beautiful record The Heart is a Lotus on Argo from 1970. Now this features a lot of the kind of premium, cream of the crop British jazz musicians of the time. Don Rendell, Ian Carr, Dave Green, Trevor Tompkins. I mean, to be honest, this is basically, most of the musicians on this are the same guys that are in the Ian Carr, Don Rendell quintet from these Jazzman reissues of these classic Lansdowne records from the mid to late 60s. This is kind of the great British jazz group, but I wanted to show something from Michael Garrick because I think in terms of compositions, he's actually one of the most interesting musicians of the time. So yeah, this record's kind of touching on all sorts of different areas of the music. It's obviously very heavily steeped in the kind of modal post-bop that you find after Coltrane, that dabbling in Eastern melodies and rhythms. But to me, there's something very different about the way that UK jazz deals with that, and those Ian Carr, Don Rendell records are similar. And I don't know whether that's to do with the sort of imperial empire, post-colonial relationship with India and the degree to which India is so steeped in what we now think of as being British culture. But there's a depth to the Indian Eastern influences in this, which I think is, I wouldn't say more overt, but there's certainly, I think, a stronger Indian presence in it. I mean, the other thing with this record that's really distinctive that I love, other than Norma Winston's vocals, which we'll come to in a second, is Michael Garrick's use of harpsichord on this. There's not many records that you'll find with harpsichord on them. There are a few. There's actually, I've got a George Gruntz record up there, which is called Jazz Goes Baroque, which has a couple of good tracks on it and some not so much. But yeah, the harpsichord on this, the way it kind of colors the music, I just find to be, yeah, really special. It's a truly special record, this one, and yeah, my copy's been signed by quite a few of the band members as well. This is a real special item to me, and yeah, a little mention to Norma Winston's vocals as well. Really kind of haunting, beautiful quality to them. She also isn't afraid to sing in her own accent, which I think often you don't find over here in the UK. The accent gets Americanized, and her voice just comes through kind of pure and clear and haunting. So yeah, Heart is a Lotus, massively recommend this. It's all up on YouTube as well. Start with Temple Dancer, the track Temple Dancer, for a kind of great example of what I'm talking about. So, UK jazz, what have I got next? Okay. This is the Bulgarian Jazz Quartet, and this record is called Jazz Focus 65. This was recorded on MPS in 1968. Yeah, 1968. And this is a group of Bulgarian musicians who were all classically trained at the time, and who effectively studied jazz by listening to radio broadcasts. They had no formal training in the music at all, and they learned by ear, basically. And what you have on this record is a really, really interesting fusion, and a few of the records I've picked out have got that kind of fusion element in its purest sense to it, of classical traditions on the one hand, and kind of jazz sensibility on the other. This, I would say, if there's one track to really pick out, and again, this will all be on YouTube, I think most of these will be, it's a piece Blues in 10, which kind of marries a traditional Hungarian rhythm, kind of 6/4 and a bar of 4/4, so you get this kind of 10-beat pulse with a blues feel, the piano work in particular is like heavily percussive at times, there's only 4 of them, but at the moments of real climax it feels almost orchestral. It's stunning. So yeah, Jazz Focus 65, Bulgarian Jazz Quartet, great records. So we move to Hungary next. This, as far as I'm aware, is the only record from this group. This is the Binder Quintet, and they're from Hungary. And this also features the Danish alto player John Jakai, who of course was on Coltrane's Great Ascension records. He features on another album I've got coming up as well. Beautiful saxophonist, very kind of haunting tone to him, I find. He's not one of these kind of explosive, fiery free jazz saxophonists. It's a little bit like Marion Brown in that sense. It's not in high intensity in your face. So this record was recorded live in 1983. I think it was originally broadcast on the radio in Hungary. This is another one where it's kind of a fusion of kind of Hungarian folk music with free jazz effectively, but it's not kind of Frank Lowe or a Sonny Sharrock kind of shredding noise. There's a bit more of a almost art ensemble of Chicago kind of rolling chamber music style to it. The first track in particular, which is called Vasvirag, kind of opens with 2 harmonicas in duet with one another, and then kind of opens up into this rolling sort of percussive drone-like piece, and it goes on for about 20 minutes. I think there's an edited version of this, so about 4 minutes long, that ended up on a Jazzman spiritual jazz compilation, but really, like, you need to hear the whole 20 minutes. It's stunning. So yeah, Binder Quintet, John Jakai, great record. More John Jakai, this time supporting the incredible South African bass player Johnny Diani. So this record, Witch Doctor's Son, I think this is one of my favourite South African jazz records of all time, possibly my favourite. It's right up there. I find I've seen a few videos shared on this topic already where people have shared South African jazz records, and they've spoken about the sort of joyous quality with that, and I mean I would 100% echo that. There's There's a real kind of celebratory quality about a lot of the music that's just really, really intoxicating. You find yourself just kind of drawn in, really sucked in by it. Yeah, this is no exception. So whole record's fantastic. Tudo Pequena on alto and tenor is terrific as well. Yeah, if there's one track to go for, again, I would say it's Maguaza though, which has Diani on vocals as well. He's actually a beautiful singer and a really hypnotic kind of vocalizer, along with his amazing bass playing. Really, really dexterous on the bass. And yeah, this is one of these pieces that, I mean, you can just get lost. It's so, so hypnotic. It's like 13.5 minutes long, and before you know it, the time's gone. So yeah, Maguaza, must listen. And yeah, fantastic South African jazz, this, Johnny Diani, Witch Doctor's son. Okay, Finland next. It's a really interesting record, this one. This is by Heikki Sarmanto, and this is a Finnish jazz record. This is a religious record, it's spiritual in the kind of truest sense. This was recorded in 1978, and it was inspired by a Finnish traditional piece that Heikki Sarmanto heard, which actually the chord changes in it reminded him of the that kind of famous repeated phrase in Coltrane's Love Supreme. And so he wrote the piece Duke and Train, which starts this record, dedicated to John Coltrane off the back of that. So it's a quartet. In fact, no, it's not. It's a sextet, excuse me. But it also features vocals as well. So there's a sextet with Sarmanto and piano, bass, percussion, 3 saxophones, and then on top of that you have this vocal quartet who just spin these amazing kind of harmonies underpinning the band as they sort of stretch out. But yeah, New Hope Jazz Mass, this is on Finlandia Records, dedicated to Duke Ellington and John Coltrane, and that's from 1979. Okay, another Coltrane link here. This is the Argentinian pianist, Alberto Ferrero, excuse me, and this is a record of his called Sweet Train. So this is it's a suite in 5 movements, and it was composed by Favero shortly after he found out that Coltrane had died in 1967. So he wrote this and pulled together a band of around 20 Argentinian musicians, and they performed it live in Buenos Aires in front of a large crowd of people. And off the back of this, he was offered the chance to record it in the studio. So he brought the same musicians together again, and they put this down on tape, I think the year following, so it would have been around 1969. When did this come out? I think it was 1970. It doesn't say here, but anyway, yeah, this is, I mean, it's a really, really haunting, moody piece. Again, like, beautiful example of modal music. It really feels like it's sort of imbued with the spirit of Coltrane, to be honest. There are moments where you feel like his shadow is almost there over the shoulder of musicians. It's so in that essence of his music. And yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful dedication, this one. It really, really is. The third and the fourth movements, third movement's called Soprano and the third is called Requiem. Those are both especially beautiful, I find. So again, it's all on YouTube. If you don't know it, go check it out. I highly, highly recommend this one. It's absolutely stunning. Alberto Ferrero's Sweet Train. Okay, so we now go to, well, sort of Switzerland, by way of Tunisia. So this is George Gruntz, pianist, composer, and this is a record that he put out on Saba as part of the Jazz Meets World series, which also touches on Japan, India, Indonesia, Spain as well, but this is one inspired by his visit to Tunisia. So in this band, some musicians who weren't so well known at the time but went on to bigger things later on. Jean-Luc Ponty on violin, Eberhard Weber, I think it's one of his first recordings, and the great Sahib Shihab as well, the only American musician on this date. So group of European musicians, and then they're augmented by large number of percussion players as well, and yeah, all of these kind of Saba records have got the most amazing packaging on them as well. Like you can see all the artwork in here, and all the musicians. It's absolutely beautiful. But yeah, this is kind of fantastic. Again, it's fusion in its truest sense between a sort of jazz sensibility and sort of North African modes. Yeah, if there's sort of one piece I would recommend checking out, it's probably start of side 2. There's a great piece called Buanoara, which I'm sure I've absolutely butchered the pronunciation of. But yeah, in fact, all of side 2 I think is absolutely terrific, to be honest. Yeah, so that's George Grunt's Noon in Tunisia. Okay, to Japan next. This is the incredible trumpet player Terumasa Hino, and this is his record Journey to Air, which he put out on Canyon Records in Japan in 1970. This record is absolutely not for the faint-hearted. It is a free jazz monster, and I mean absolute monster. Like, you take the intensity of something like Ascension and it's right up at that level. It's kind of a blend of Japanese and American musicians. Steve Grossman, Pete Yellen, Dave Liebman, Bob Moses, Dave Holland are all on this, but so is the great Japanese drummer Motohiko Hino, and also Toru Nakamura as well on bass. And yeah, I mean, there's not much I can really say to describe this. You really just have to hear it. Like a lot of real intense free jazz, it's music that you really just need to experience and let envelop you. There's no way to really describe it. But it is two sides, continuous, just, yeah, intense listening as well as kind of ferocious playing between all these musicians. I have actually uploaded this onto YouTube, so if you want to hear it, you can find it. You can either check it out on my channel or just search Terumasa Hino Journey to Air. Yeah, not the easiest listen, but it's a great free jazz record, and it's probably one of Terumasa Hino's lesser known records, I would say, but definitely worth checking out. So from Japan we'll go to Italy now, back to Europe, and this is the great pianist Giorgio Gasolini. This is his sextet from the mid to late 1970s. And I think this is kind of widely considered to be his best group, certainly his most innovative. Best known musician in this band other than him is probably Gianluigi Travesi, who plays bass clarinet. He's on a lot of the more kind of recent ECM records. He's a great musician. This record's actually, it's very progressive, but I also find it really funky. I mean, it's a deep record. The grooves on it, when it really gets in that mode and barrels forward, they're really deep. I mean, yeah, if you like Fender Rhodes, there's a couple of tracks with incredible Fender Rhodes work from him on this. Yeah, it's in 5 movements again, or maybe 6. Yeah, 5. Yeah, movements 3, which has kind of got this real kind of heavy head nodding groove to it. Like you almost crick your neck, it's that heavy. And movement 5, which is just the intensity of the swing on it. You know, you've got these 6 Italian musicians and they're swinging as hard as any American group. Yeah, this is some of the best Italian jazz, some of the best European jazz, full stop, you'll find. I couldn't recommend this one highly enough. Yeah, and again, this is on YouTube, you can find it. Giorgio Gasolini Sextet, free actions. Check it out. Yeah, finally, I wanted to pick out something that was... I don't want everything to be from, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. I wanted something a little bit more contemporary. So I've decided to pick out something from the great Muriel Grossman. Some of you guys will probably know her work already. Yeah, this is her record from this year. It's called Reverence. I think her last record, Golden Rule, was a bit of a VC favourite from what I can recall. This record is right up there in terms of quality. I would say Golden Rule was, it was heavy, kind of Coltrane infused, Coltrane inspired music. This is still in that same vein, but I think there's more of a kind of fascination and experimentation with rhythm on this. There's much more of a rhythmic drone throughout, and kind of playfulness with the drums and the bass that was not quite present in Golden Rule. Yeah, it's a great band. She's added organ for this record. The previous record was just her working quartet. But yeah, the organ on this as well gives it a little bit more of a kind of spacey vibe. Yeah, some of the slower tracks are just really ethereal. There's an almost sort of kind of Alice Coltrane vibe to some of them, which properly transportive. In my mind, she's top 5 working musicians in jazz at the moment. I mean, she's seriously right up there, playing, composition, consistency. If you don't know her music, check it out. And if you've heard Golden Rule but you haven't heard this, you need this. I'll say no more than that. Just noticed the record I was spinning has stopped. I have one more to show. It's like a bonus, but I'm just gonna flip this over. Hang on. I don't know if you can actually hear it or not, but if you could and you liked it, this is British sax player Nat Birchall. He's from Manchester, and this is a record that came out last week. He recorded all of it himself. So he plays tenor, bass, clarinet, korg, drums, bass. So all done during lockdown while he was stuck inside. So it's all done with him, overdubs, and it's sort of a tribute to Sun Ra, this record. And yeah, it's awesome, kind of lo-fi jazz, really. Yeah, it's great. That is not my bonus though, although I guess it kind of is now, so we'll say 2 bonuses. So these didn't really factor into my thinking when I was putting this together, because I'm pretty sure James said LPs, so I left out these. These are only available on CD. But this is Romano Sclavis Texier, Aldo Romano, Luis Sclavis, and Henri Texier. Yeah, it's a series of 3 CDs that they put out in the late 90s through to early 2000s. And these were all done across a space of around 10 years as they were touring around sub-Saharan Africa. And as a trio, they would record in local villages. They would meet people, musicians, learn off them, exchange ideas, and they're accompanied by a photographer the whole time. And so what you have on these is kind of this merging between French jazz, North African music, yeah, to my mind, I mean, this is some of the best jazz that was put out in the 90s by far. I mean, it's like got a deep connection to African culture, but it's still got this kind of distinctive kind of French vibe to it, real connection to French folk music still. You know, if you know Henri Texier, you maybe know Varesh or Ami, which are both incredible records, him on solo bass. But yeah, all 3 of these CDs are incredible. And they've all got amazing photography in them as well. I mean, they're kind of half between music and half between kind of musicology, music study. So yeah, highly recommend those. Okay, so I think that's probably it for me. I'm not sure how long I've gone on for there, but it's probably long enough. If you've watched this far, thanks for staying with me. Hopefully I'll be doing another one again shortly. Thanks to James for the way into this. Yeah, it was just a theme that really kind of hooked me, as I said. So yeah, until next time, take care, look after yourselves. I'll catch you soon. Cheers.